Hello.
Let's see if it worked. I
Hello,
always get it at
hello.
least slightly wrong once, so let's see if we can hear ourselves. Can everyone hear us?
Are we muted again?
Are we live?
We'll
We're
see.
looking for like thumbs
Confirmation
up
of some sort. Yes,
I
we hear
hear
voices.
we hear
That could be
voices.
Chef's problem, but we'll see. Anyways, this is Your Brand, Your Business, and we are not professional streamers, so we appreciate you guys hanging out here with us to hear what we're going to talk about today. I'm Galen Herbstick Cortina, and our show is How to Work with Game Studios. Dan, who are you?
Hi, my name is Dan, or Raidhyn, as I'm known in certain circles in the internet. I'm the community manager at Adult Swim Games, and I'm here today to tell you a bunch of things that were probably once secrets, but will no longer be.
Alrighty, and Noah, go for it.
Hi, I'm Noah. I'm a lawyer, but I'm not yet your lawyer. Here's my disclaimer. I'm also a co-host of this show. That is a disclaimer in itself. But anything I'm about to say today, if it is legal in nature or illegal in nature, does not count as legal advice or is for informational purposes only. And anything that could happen to you or in your specific circumstance could be entirely different. So, take this advice and go try it at a friend's house. Don't try it at home.
Perfect. There you go.
Cool.
I will give a bit of a warning. You may hear my daughter crying in the background. She is 7 months old and does not know that I am doing a show. So, yeah,
That's how she's showing support.
exactly. So there's a chance that you do it. So anyways, Dan, the first thing that we wanted to ask about, because this is something that we've seen some people successfully transition into roles like yours, or just, sort of figure out how to get there. But what was your career path to be where you are today?
So, I started working at McDonald's when I was 15.
Oh, wow.
No, so for me it was kind of weird. I've had a very interesting career. So let's see, I dropped out of college. I was a professional at dropping out of college. I joined the Army when I was 19 because I didn't really have a lot of other choices. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to get a job as a public affairs specialist, which basically means it was journalism when things were good and PR when things were bad.
Wow.
6.5 years. When I got out, I was looking at the landscape. This was like 2011. I was looking around. I was like, what do I do? Do I do more PR stuff or do I do more journalism stuff? And I was like, well, let's go do PR since that seems like everybody needs that these days. So I went to school for a marketing degree in Chicago. And while I was there, I was lucky enough to get introduced to a guy who used to work for Sega, like way back in the day.
Holy crap.
And he told me about this thing called GDC and that people need marketing people for games. And I was like, okay, let's go investigate. So went to GDC for a few years, learned everything I could about the games industry, started working with indies, like, freelance pro bono stuff while working my regular job. And then I started doing content in 2014, ran a YouTube channel for a little while, discovered this little game in like alpha that was called Brawlhalla.
Oh, I'm familiar with that one.
I started playing that. People were searching for those videos, so I made more of it. And then eventually I became like the top content creator for that while I was in closed beta. I was already doing like pro bono consulting for indies, and I was doing that kind of stuff. And so I reached out to that team. I was like, hey, let's do like this thing that I do for, game devs, because I want to work in the game space one day. So they liked that. They liked what I was doing in the community. And then when the time was right for them, they offered me a job. I think it was about 8 months later. And then I packed up me and my family and we moved down to Georgia, and I worked for them for 2.5 years as the marketing and community guy. Brawlhalla was a pretty small team when I joined. I was the 13th hire. Now I think they're up to like 30 or something.
Yeah, I think they, when I was working with them, they were up in the 20s, and so I think they got even more now.
Yeah, which is great. So that was really awesome. I was there for 2.5 years, and then I happened to run into this job offer from Adult Swim where they were looking for a community manager and had been like having a hard time trying to find somebody who was both qualified and interested in living in Atlanta. Because believe it or not, it's kind of difficult to get talent in places that aren't the West Coast, just because of the nature of the games industry. So yeah, so that's kind of like the big long story of how I am here. So I've been at Adult Swim for a little over 2 years now, and it's been absolutely awesome.
Wow. I didn't realize you'd been there that long.
Yeah.
Wow. So you worked at Brawlhalla a while. You said that you were one of their largest content creators?
Yeah, so and by large I mean like this was back when the game was in closed beta.
Uh-huh.
It had, maybe 10,000 installs. It had 100, like peak concurrent players, like 100. Like so and that was on like a good weekend. So by top creator, it was like I started a Twitch channel and I would get like 30 viewers and people and like this was like amazing to half of those viewers were the dev team, but it didn't matter, right? Like
wow.
like when you have a small game that's just beginning, like 30 was a huge number. So I started doing like tournament organization and commentary, and I made a bunch of guides and all these things. And like I think the first video that I ever broke 1,000 views on YouTube was like in April, after I'd been trying to grow the Brawlhalla community for 3 or 4 months. So like, and that was like this big milestone, like, oh my God, we got 1,000 views, guys, like everybody freak out. So it's, the size and the scale of it is very, very different based on like what game you're really investing time into.
Yeah.
Were you the one behind their completely awesome PAX booths where the devs just kick everyone's ass at the game all day? Because I love watching that. I have never played Brawlhalla in my life, but I love just watching the devs kick bystanders' asses the entire day.
Yeah, that was kind of born out of that idea came up like after my first year on the event circuit with them, because normally like we originally had this thing where we were like, okay, we can't fight people because if we just destroy them, they'll never want to play our games. So we have to just and then we went to PSX one year and it was like late in the day and like PSX had super long show hours. So we were like, you know what? Like we've been here forever. Like, let's have some fun. Let's play people. And they loved it. Like everybody just loved us like destroying people. And we like a crowd started forming because we were just, talking mad smack at everybody. So
that's awesome.
We ended up turning that into like the bigger idea. And now like they run that at every event that they go to, all
it's
the PAXs.
Great. Yeah, I mean, the Brawlhalla booth is always the most packed booth, no matter what time of day you go. Right. Like, unless you like go randomly and like PlayStation's giving away a literal PlayStation to anybody who stands there.
Yeah.
Then you guys are actually going to be the most packed one. I mean, going over there and talking to some of the devs, it's hard sometimes to even find somebody that works there because they're always playing. So it's good to know that they love the game. I expect though, going from Blue Mammoth to because Brawlhalla was under Blue Mammoth when you were there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's still Blue Mammoth is still the studio.
And it got bought by Ubisoft though.
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah, they moved over to Ubisoft right around the time that I was leaving. And Ubisoft's been like a really, really awesome partner for them. Like I still keep in touch with those guys and, say hi to them whenever we're at events and things. And like it's been really good for them. So.
Well, I imagine going from that to, essentially working for Turner, which is a huge, a long time established company, but it's just getting into games. Must have been kind of a switch for you. Obviously, a lot of the skills will translate, but it must have been kind of like a different kind of beast.
Yeah, it definitely was a different environment, right? Like working at an indie studio where you can stand up and look around the room and see everyone that works there is very different from working, as part of a, albeit like the games team is pretty small as far as Turner is concerned, but like we have this giant corporate structure and system that we're a part of. So there's a lot of things where instead of it's like me going directly to my boss and being like, hey, like, can I order like a whole bunch of things, for this event we're about to do? It's instead like, oh, hey, where's my budget? Have we talked to finance? Let me go, clear this with PR and like, let's talk to the events team. And so it's definitely a very different type of scale.
It's like, hey, I want to appear on the show with my friends and talk about, working with game studios. Who do I have to talk to about that? Oh, it's an approval process. Okay. No, I super appreciate you being here, man. So let's talk a little bit about what everybody's here for. So let's
the only dance.
What?
His only dance. That's what we're here for. That's the content we're getting.
Oh my God. Anyways, I'm ignoring that. So let's ask the big question then. What do studios look for when you're looking at broadcast talent, when that's when to promote games and stuff?
So it's different for every studio, and it's different for larger organizations versus smaller teams. But I think like one of the biggest things across the board for everybody, if they have a dedicated community or influencer person, is trying to find the right fit. So like every broadcaster out there has their own community, their own audience, their own games that they get excited about, and every community is unique. So one of the biggest things that I look for is, what is the game that we're making and who fits that, right? So like it's one of those things, and a lot of that has to do with like we genuinely want people that we work with to enjoy the games, right? Like I don't want to just like shill out our games to every single person on the planet and be like, no, you'll have fun, I swear. I'm like, I've played enough video games to know that not everybody likes every type of video game. That's just not how any of this works, right? So like if I'm working on a first person shooter, I'm not going to reach out to somebody who plays MMOs as 95% of their broadcasting time. I'm going to look for people who are involved in the FPS communities, like whether that's Warframe or Call of Duty or, Fortnite or whatever. I'm going to look for somebody who likes holding guns and running around on the screen. And like, even just that distinction alone is like, is something that's really important. Some smaller places, like if you're particularly looking at working with indies or working with like, brand new studios, like they honestly don't care. They'll take any exposure they can get. Right. Which is,
they just want eyes on the game.
Exactly. And they also have like far less stringent criteria, like looking back at Brawlhalla, like when I first started like reaching out to them for stuff, I was some guy with like 6 viewers on Twitch. Right.
Yeah.
But like we grew together, and that's the way that a lot of small indie studios will look at it, where if they find somebody who's genuinely interested and loves their game, they're going to want to work with you. But if it's, the bigger you go, the more complex it gets. And like, when a giant game comes out, like, I don't know, like Final Fantasy remake comes out, right?
Let's call it Final Fantasy VII remake.
Yes. Like everybody's going to play that. Everybody wants to play that, right?
Yeah.
And so you get thousands and thousands of requests, and now you really have to decide like, all right, who are the people that I want to highlight and work with? And most of the time that comes down to like who's the right fit, what size audience can we get, and all those kind of things.
So like if you're looking at a game that's like Duck Game, for example, just because I literally just remembered it's on my desk.
Mine's not because of the move. I'd have to go into my room to grab it. It's in the bag in there.
But yeah, so if you're promoting stuff like Duck Game, like what's your strategy there? Obviously you're not going to go for, top like Fortnite players like, I don't know, Tfue or Ninja, but you're looking for more variety streamers?
Yeah, like Duck Game's kind of interesting because that's one that I kind of look at as being genre agnostic almost. Because it's really like it doesn't quite fit inside a well-defined box. Like it's an RPG, it's an FPS, it's a MMO, it's a like it's an action adventure game. Like it's a 4-player multiplayer game that you can learn how to play in 30 seconds. So like it at that point, like where it becomes less about fit, it becomes more about like who we want to work with. And at that point it's me doing two things. Is one, people who are obviously fans, right? So like people who have reached out to us in some way, shape, or form, whether it's a random, oh my god, I love this game on Twitter that they tag us in, so now I see it and it's on our radar, or if it's my ongoing list of people who've reached out to me over the past year and said like, I love Adult Swim, I love the games you guys make, and they get added to the ongoing infinite spreadsheet of people that I reach out to when it's time to do that.
Yeah. The indefinite, ever lengthening sheet of people that want to play Adult Swim games.
Yep.
And mainly they just know Rick and Morty.
Yep. that definitely, that does happen.
So that brings up a good question. Like when you're looking for people to add to that list, is it somebody walks up to you at convention and says, hey, here's my card, hit me up next time? Or is it, is it more of a follow-up process? Like how do you get onto that list?
So I know everybody does this differently. So here's what I do. And this probably isn't true for everybody else in the industry, but maybe there's some parallels. Largely like it can be, I can meet you at a show, I get a business card, cool. That person gets filed. if I, see a cool tweet and I go and I have time to look you up at that moment, and I'm like, oh, okay, this person's a streamer, they have a community, cool. And then like basically like there's a second layer where I go and I basically have like a gate system of other things that I check for to see if people actually get on the list or not.
Right.
And that's usually got to do with like a couple different things. One is, are you active? So like I get hit up by people who are like, oh yeah, I have 250,000 subs on YouTube, and like their last video was like 3 weeks ago, and the video before that was 3 months earlier, and I'm just like, okay, so you used to make content and have an audience, now you just want free stuff.
Yeah.
So like no, so that person doesn't get through. The person who like who made a channel and like made a video but doesn't post at all, like, or they stream but they haven't been streaming long enough to know how to save previously recorded broadcasts.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's no way for me to verify if they're actually streaming the way that they say that they are. So like, having done content creation before I started working in the industry, I'm very sensitive to people who have the hustle. Like, I don't care about the audience size as much. Like, it's more like, oh, I see that you have a schedule and you're streaming 3 to 5 times a week. That's lit. Oh, you're on YouTube, you're doing Let's Plays and you post every day. Like, sure, you might only get 13 viewers, but I know that you're passionate enough about this.
Yeah.
Where if I work with that person, I know he's going to make content about my game. I'm not just throwing a key out into the void. So it's a kind of a layered system where like I go and I look at people's channels and I make sure that, hey, they're active. Obviously if they're partnered, it's a lot easier to just see that and verify quickly. And if they are partnered, even at that stage, then what I typically do is I do some kind of community check. Like, I just make sure that I'm going to be working with someone who shares like a lot of the same values that I expect like people in this industry to have. Which is just like the basic chat rules, right? Don't be a dick, be accepting of everybody. Are you out here playing games to have fun, or are you just going to be like, cursing at the screen for 3 hours while my game is in the background? Like, I go and I do a quick check, because by God, those things have all happened. So it's that kind of 2 or 3 step process.
That's awesome.
It's part of why I really like meeting people at events, and one day in the future I hope we can go back to that, because there it's really easy to get a sense of who a person is and why they play and what they play, and you can just qualify people instantly instead of being like, all right, let me go back and research the last 3 weeks of tweets to see if you're a jerk or not.
Yeah.
Right. I was gonna say, I was literally supposed to be flying to Memphis on Wednesday. No longer.
Yeah.
No longer.
Me too. St. Jude fundraising coming up soon.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, so yeah, no, I think that's incredibly interesting. So you don't really have a small streamer versus large streamer kind of cut off like the giant perception is in this industry when people work with studios. You look more for a community basis.
Yeah, like I look for, are they fans and are they active?
Yeah.
Like one of the there was a guy that I worked with when Death Gambit launched, where he reached out to me and was like, hey, I have this new channel. Like, I've only done a few videos so far, but I'm really excited about it. And like, I only have a couple hundred subscribers on YouTube, which is very small. He was like, but I'm super pumped, And so I talked with him a little bit, and I watched one of his videos, and like the video that he did a review on Dead Cells like a month before our game launched. It's a great game, right? And I'm watching this and I'm like, this is really good. Like, this is like, you could tell that he's new, but you could also tell that he like poured his soul into this thing, right? And so I was like, yeah, cool. Like, this is great, because I know like for him, getting a game key is a seminal moment when you're starting off as a broadcaster, right? So when it comes to keys, like it's a lot easier to be fluid with that. When you're talking about paid opportunities and paid sponsorships, that's when it becomes very different, because at that point it becomes a lot more about data. It becomes a little bit more about return on investment, and you do definitely become more scrutinous about like, who am I working with? Is it the right fit? Is it so there's definitely that 2 different level distinction between, oh hey, I need a game key, and oh hey, I want to get paid for every half-hour block that I play your game, or every hour-long block that I play your game, or what have you. So It's an important distinction to remember, because if you're working in keys, it's a very different ballgame from working in like, oh hey, here's a portion of our marketing budget that we're paying you.
Yeah.
So as a part of that, then when moving to the side of things of like, hey, we are paying this person to play our game, what's the experience like when you've been working with individuals versus working with, say, agencies or management groups? How do those compare? Do you have one that you prefer, is easier? Sort of
So straight up from the industry side of things, it's agencies can be very time saving, right? Because now you're talking to one person, or one point of contact at one group who's going to get you 15, 20, 30 streamers, right?
Right.
I have only met like maybe 2 agencies that exist that I actually enjoy working with, and the rest I still raise an eyebrow and like, are you legit? So there's only a small handful that I found that I actually like working with. It's definitely time saving, right? Which is the biggest thing. Like, I originally one of the first go arounds for paying folks, I was like, okay, we're gonna work with these 10 people, and that meant I had to write 10 contracts. I had to get all those contracts co-signed. I had to get all of those individuals paid out. So it definitely becomes more time consuming. But it also, I think, like, helps you strengthen the relationship between you and the streamer that you're working with.
the one-on-one.
So it's like everything's got its ups and downs. But a lot of it has to do, from the industry end, it has to do with like, if it's just one individual and it's not a whole big team, right? Working with an agency can save them a lot of time. If they are big enough to where they're just like, oh, hey, we already have our own huge system in place for this, then, they could work direct as well.
Yes.
But that's typically the distinction.
So would you find, and this is almost for anybody that works with an agency in here, would you find that a streamer who is currently with an agency might do well to request to get some kind of FaceTime with you or something, just so they can build a relationship with the brand and understand a little bit better?
Yeah, that kind of thing's always super welcome. Like, I think that there's probably a little bit of a misconception that we're hard to get in touch with, or that we don't want to talk to you or whatnot. Like, I think that there's, especially if you're going to be playing our game, and in that particular scenario that you described, where it's like, oh, hey, we're talking to your agency, we're going to hire you. Like, yeah, of course, I'd love to talk to you directly. Like, we're about to do work together. Like, hit me up, let me know what's going on. Like, you got questions about the game, like all that kind of communication and stuff. Because the thing about it is, the relationships in the games industry are really the single most important thing, right? Like, my predecessor now works at Bethesda, like,
Oh, wow.
I won't work at Adult Swim forever. I'm sure they'll get sick of me one of these days, right? And so, like,
is this breaking news?
No, don't get too excited. But what I'm getting at is that, the person that you make a relationship with today is going to continue to be in this industry and be doing awesome things down the road, and that's why, like, people say, like, hey, like, don't burn bridges. Like, you shouldn't even be thinking about that way. Like, every relationship is an opportunity for you to, cement yourself as being part of this industry. Somebody that you're rude to in Twitch chat today could be the person who's deciding whether or not to pay you a sponsored opportunity next year. Like, you never know. Like, the amount of full-time streamers who now get, like, hired into these roles is only continuing to grow as the games industry realizes how important influencers are to the whole ecosystem. So the relationship side of it's definitely very important.
Oh yeah, no, it's incredible. So so what I would say then is, with the relationships, obviously when you're looking for activations, relationships go into kind of a predictor of success, I would say. Like, if you have a good relationship with a broadcaster, you think, well, I think that they're going to do well. But what are some markers of success that you look for, both like predictive and like after the fact?
Are you talking specific to the campaign, or like towards the relationship?
I think towards either, actually, like a successful relationship or a successful campaign.
I mean, for me, like, because thinking back, like, there's some broadcasters I've known since like the very first event I went out to, started meeting people. There's some folks I know, like, they're still full-time streamers. I've never once had an opportunity or reason to work with them. But I'll still reach out to them all the time. People that I've met then are now working at places like Tiltify, or people are working at Twitch, and the rest of it. Like, there's the relationships continue to get maintained, and I just get to watch like people that I met go be successful in different ways. So that's kind of the way that I look at it. Like, the only possible instances I've seen are either when people like disappear entirely because they pull out, which is not uncommon,
right?
Because this whole thing's super stressful, or I see people where they start like trying to chase their past and lose focus a little bit, and I've seen that happen to some broadcasters recently where they've been at it for so long that they just don't feel like they're moving anywhere. So I try to keep an eye on that, and I try to talk to people and see if there's ways that I can help or assist and whatnot. But the relationships never really go away. You're just always kind of keeping an eye on everybody constantly.
Yeah. So when you're looking at a campaign, what do you think is kind of a predictive marker of success? How can, or phrased a different way, how can a particular streamer increase their chances of being selected for a campaign? What do you look for there?
It's a couple things. I think as far as the way that I tend to do it is we have to qualify, like, if it's just okay, so let's split it up again, because again, there's two big portions of this, right? There's like paid versus we gave you a key, which are two different types of engagements, right? So if we're giving you a key, like, the main thing that I'm looking for is like, did you play it in the window that I asked you to, the window of time, right? Because a big portion of it for me is like, if we're doing a launch or a demo or a update or whatever, from our end, we're always looking at it during like a specific time frame. So if we're doing like one of the really common practices right now is, hey, we're going to provide everyone keys. If we provided you with a key, you get access to the game a day early, right? And we see a lot of that where there will be hundreds of people playing the game on Twitch the day before it comes out, which has been like become kind of a common practice. So like in that case, if I give you a key, I expect you to play on that day because I'm measuring the success of that campaign based on the Twitch stats for that singular day. And so if I find out that you played it like 2 weeks later or whatever, then it's like, wait a minute, and so like that's where like I go back in my spreadsheet and I make a note, and like the rest of it. For the paid opportunity is like, typically what that is we're looking at things and we're making this decision and saying it's very important that streamers play our game because we need it for one of several reasons, right? Like, because our game is really complicated and different. So we need people to play it live and show why it's fun. Or like we need a community to be built around this game. So we need to seed it into people where we think this is going to stick. Or, hey, this game is like very niche, and so we need to hit this very specific audience in a meaningful way, right?
Gotcha.
So there's other reasons for that, and the reason why those reasons have to exist is because it's basically like it's coming out of an advertising budget or the marketing budget for the game, right? So like if you get 100 viewers an hour and that's your average concurrent, and we pay for that, that has to equal at least some sort of similar value to what we would get for that cost of buying advertising space on PC Gamer or Game Informer or IGN or whatever. So like at the end of the day, if you're getting paid to stream, you're just a big part of that marketing media mix, right? And like nobody likes to talk about that and be like, you're just a number, because obviously there's a lot of extra value in having your game streamed versus a sidebar ad, right? Or like a Reddit ad or whatever. But it still comes out of that big pile of whatever they've set aside for the launch of the game. And so that's where there's a lot of pre-qualification, right? Like we're paying you, the streamer, X because we expect you to get this number of viewers. That's how we've decided to pay you. It's based on the amount of time that you play. And so all of those things are checked against and measured against so that we know that you actually fulfilled the contract that you signed.
Gotcha.
That's when it gets, extra nitty gritty.
So on those kinds of things, how much of it are you tracking it? How much of it are streamers bringing to you? And if, what kinds of things could they do to make your life easier to see yeah, we actually did what we said we were going to do, or better, or whatever it is.
Yeah. So honestly, I love it when streamers come back to me with like end of stream statistics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like,
That's
hey,
awesome.
I played your game for an hour and a half. Like we went a little over, you know. Love hearing that. And then things like, oh, hey, here's my analytics snapshot from the night. Like here's my average viewers. Here's the average time that people stuck around. Here's oh, the chat was popping. Oh, hey, here's this clip someone took. And I'm like, yes, clips.
Right. Clips are great. Clips are gold.
So like all that kind of stuff like afterwards is great because it gives me like immediate context for what happened. And it also makes my job easier because typically what I'm doing the day after this is like, hey, now I got to go manually pull all this data because I have to go and look at it and later, compile it, dissect it, and report it. So when streamers are proactive and they actually just send me that stuff afterwards, it's awesome.
And are you using something like Arsenal for that, or are you seeing streamers use that?
So Arsenal is actually something I'm thinking about picking up this year because it is super awesome. I largely do because most of the projects in the past haven't been on too huge of a scale. I either A, do it manually, or B, I go use Solinome and pull whatever I can out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Twitch Tracker too, I would say.
Yeah. So there's definitely some good free tools out there for gathering that stuff. Arsenal is one of the more
Arsenal's paid to you but free to broadcasters, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's free for broadcasters to use, which is great. And then it's like if I want to run campaigns and reports and things through there on the industry side, it's a paid tool. But it is awesome.
So one of the things I know that you and I were both excited to talk about, as well as Galen, were kind of like timing for a campaign. I wanted to give you kind of the floor to talk about, what do you look for in that kind of thing.
So I think this is one of the things that streamers, especially folks who haven't done a lot of industry engagement yet, probably don't think about it in this context. But it's really helpful to know when to reach out to organizations, and game studios and stuff, because there's a lot of timing related things that come into it. Because if you reach out to me on Christmas Eve, I am ignoring the crap out of you. I'm on vacation. I'm with my family.
Right.
This is the one time a year that I don't have to work for a week and a half, and I'm so excited. The last thing I want to do is talk to you.
You still responded to me though.
Only to because you're the exception, not the rule. But the timing, from a easier to understand perspective, is related to what's happening with the game that place is making, right? So if it's and these are pretty obvious once you start thinking about them, but we're talking about stuff like when a game is about to launch. That's they just announced the launch date. That's a good time to reach out to the community manager.
That's perfect.
All right. If they just put up a free demo on PlayStation, right, and you're keyed up about it, go hit up the community and influencer manager. Be like, hey, I'm about to play this demo. I'm really excited. I love what you're doing. Because that type of outreach at that time, that's how you get on people's lists. That's how people remember you. That's how they start to make a connection to you. Because otherwise you're just, another streamer with audience and, a Twitter avatar with a couple thousand followers, right? Everybody starts to look the same unless you reach out to people and make a connection. Big patches and updates are a big one. So if you're into the games that get updated forever, Warframe or Final Fantasy or what have you, Brawlhalla, right? They add a new character.
Crazy.
That's the time to reach back out to people. DLC is another one, obviously. Anniversaries of games is a good one.
Oh, interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that.
If your favorite game of all time is, I don't know, whatever that might be, and it's the 5th year, right? Go shoot a note to those developers or to that community manager. Be like, hey, I'm doing this awesome thing. I'm gonna try to, I'm gonna speed run the game. We're gonna do this multi-stream thing. We're gonna do this, whatever it is. Reach out and let people know because they get excited about that. It's another good way to make a connection. And then like the other thing is like any kind of like one-off campaigns that they seem to be doing. If you're doing some sort of event like a charity drive, or maybe it's your 1-year anniversary of streaming and you're trying to incorporate your favorite games, like I get hit up all the time about charity streams and I love it.
That's awesome.
Because I'm like, this is great because I can support.
Right.
And like, I can support the streamer, I can support charity, I can support this portion of the community. It doesn't cost me any time, which is always the most valuable resource.
I would say that that's even more relevant right now, hitting up about charity stuff, because obviously, we're about to jump into St. Jude Play Live. We got a lot of charities going for No Kid Hungry, whatnot.
Yep.
So I think that's huge. That's really great advice.
So Grid 21 was saying that they have trouble getting a hold of community managers or finding their contact. So there's a couple good ways to figure out how to do this. There's basically every community manager has different preferred methods of how they like to be contacted. The same way that you guys do, right? Like trying to reach some streamers through email is an impossible task. While other streamers want everything funneled through the email because otherwise they'll lose track of it because they're very self-aware and they have grown as people. But whatever the case may be,
you have to learn every friggin' person's preferences.
So it's very similar for community managers. So like,
I'm gonna just start calling everyone.
Just
you won't respond to me? Fine, your phone's gonna ring.
This never goes off. I don't give anyone my phone number.
Nobody?
Nobody. Unless it's at an event and it's very late and our signal's bad. So yeah, like it's the best way to do it if you're trying to track people down is to, go to official websites. Nobody goes to video game websites, but a lot of times they'll be listed there. Twitter is always easy if you can like search for bios, like, use your Google searching skills. I was trying to track down the community manager for a game the other day that I hadn't met yet, and it took me 5 minutes.
Let's say
Google.
Community managers want to be found, I assume.
Generally, we want to be found. We want to be contacted. We want people to reach out to us. A bigger and bigger majority of community folks are easily available on Twitter. So yeah, I get hit up on Twitter pretty frequently.
Yeah, I bet you do. You're very active on Twitter, I will say.
Yeah, I like Twitter. I'm a words person, so I like the words and the stuff. But yeah, like tracking people down. It definitely gets more challenging the bigger the company or the game studio is. It's often a lot more difficult to track down a community manager at an Activision or an Electronic Arts versus like the 12-person or 4-person team down the road. But they exist. They're out there. You can find them.
I will say, just a heads up, guys, while I've got the two of you here, just make sure you don't say anything too bad. My boss is in chat. Hi,
I did see that. Attorney. Yes.
Yeah, so be careful.
Noah's been a terrible host.
So
Noah texts people on Christmas. That's what we heard.
Hey, no, I don't. That didn't happen.
So one more thing about the timing thing that's really funny.
Yeah.
So one of the other things to note.
Wow, Noah really wanted to get off that topic.
Is I love this topic because no one wants to talk about these basic details. Okay, so like y'all streamers, when do you work? You work from like 3 p.m. to midnight, right? Like that's like standard streamer hours. And then on weekends, like you're almost always streaming like these huge blocks of time, and then afterwards you're hopping on social and doing all this stuff. Okay, the games industry people, we have to work normal hours, so it's usually 9 to 5 or 10 to 6. After that, we go home and we're trying to play video games or see our significant others or what have you. So the number of times that I get reached out to at like 9 p.m. on a Saturday and that person gets ignored continues to rise the longer I've been doing this.
Yeah,
because it's just not a good time, So
yeah, like, guys, he's playing Warzone with me and Josh.
I do not play Warzone
yet.
But like, just do be aware that the people you're reaching out to have working hours, and so if they don't reach back out to you over, because you hit them up at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday or whatever, like, do follow up and reach out again. Like, if you don't get responded to the first time, give it 24 hours. You don't hear back, it's probably because they missed it. Reach back out to them again. That's totally awesome. Everybody appreciates follow-ups. But yeah, the time difference of when streamers work versus when industry works like continues to happen constantly. So just another tip.
I sent you my stream. Please respond.
Yeah.
Right now, I need you to do this. So, while we've got about 18 minutes left, and we want to save some time for questions and whatnot. But Dan, is there anything upcoming at Adult Swim Games that you want to chat about or can chat about?
So the biggest thing is we are releasing a Samurai Jack video game.
I've got my shirt.
Called Samurai Jack Battle Through Time, which is awesome. I'm still working on it. I was playing it yesterday because that's one of the privileges that you get when you work on a game. You can play it all the time if you want. But yeah, so it's coming out this summer. We haven't announced a release date yet, but like what we talked about, when that release date trailer comes out, that's the perfect time to hit me up on Twitter and be like, hey, Raidhyn, love Samurai Jack. How's it going? Would love to stream it when this game comes out. And I can be like, oh, cool. Thanks a lot, Twitch streamer 460. Let's add you over here to this nice spreadsheet that I've got so I know to reach back out to you when the day arrives.
Yep. So, yeah, you said, like, is there a, you mentioned reaching out in terms of announcement and stuff like that. You mentioned, like, hey, if you don't hear back, follow up kind of a thing. Is there a time at which like someone should just be like, never mind, haven't heard from them, probably won't again, or is it like, no, we're
it's so usually, at least how I do it is I almost always try to close out the conversation, so like if somebody reaches out and I'm like, I can't work with this person right now, I'm usually like, hey, we're not interested, we're not looking for anybody to work with right now, or this isn't the right time. But thanks a whole bunch for reaching out, stay in touch and just try to close it out. Sometimes you may never get a response back. That's cool. That's why you should try again during the next window, or, even like during just the gaps as well. Like the windows, the timing windows are interesting because that's when for sure that people are going to be watching everything.
Right.
It's also when they're going to be the most busy. So they do have to prioritize. But at least their eyes are on it, So
poor Slate was barely awake towards the release of the remake.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, like I think the biggest thing is to figure out how to reach back out and follow up without becoming a pest, which largely just has
my
to
biggest
do
problem.
With, like,
God.
Maintain, be professional, be honest, don't talk down to the person who hasn't gotten back to you. I've seen that a number of times, and that just gets you blacklisted if you're a jerk. There is a community manager mafia, and we do all talk to each other, and we do all share blacklists. Probably shouldn't say that out loud, but those are the facts. Like
we've had people say it before. You're good.
There's a lot of but follow-ups are good. Like if I hear from somebody on a Saturday, my thought is like, okay, I'm not getting back to this person right now because I'm on the couch with my beautiful wife and we're watching a movie. This movie's amazing. This movie and my wonderful wife are not going to get paused so that I can respond to this person. So I'm going to get back to them at Monday. Monday when I go back to work, I'm going to reach back out to this person.
Did my wife pay you to say that?
Monday, right? Like that means that like, oh crap, I completely forgot about reaching back out to this person. That happens. So if I get another text Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. from the same person, I go, oh my God, I was meaning to reach back out to you. Thanks for hitting me up. How are you doing? What's up? So like, it's just be aware that, there is a human on the other end of this. And just because they don't get back to you, it doesn't mean they're trying to ghost you. It just means that they could be busy or they can't reach back out to you right now or what have you. So follow up professionally and
I've gotten so much better at just for those after hours messages that we all get from streamers. I've gotten way better at, is it an emergency? No. Reminder to respond tomorrow morning. That took a while to get good at though.
Yeah, I will say that, I'm working on the turning off the phone thing at night still. It's difficult. It's kind of ingrained, but
Ernest coming in hot that he hasn't figured that out yet. We know, Ernest.
But also, I will say, and just to give Dan a second to breathe, because he's been doing a lot of amazing talking here. Also, I think there's an element of, if somebody does say, hey, we're not ready to work with you right now, but thank you for reaching out, like Dan alluded to, that you should take that with stride and grace, because there's always the chance that they literally just don't have the slot, and somebody like Dan will put you on the list for the next one because they'll remember you. But if you're a jerk right then and say, I can't believe you'll do this, you let Tfue in or something like that, then which not a good excuse. I would say that don't react like that, because you'll never get asked back.
Yeah, it's very different now from how it was several years ago, right? Like several years ago, there was maybe 50 streamers, maybe 100 that people ever wanted to work with, right? Now it's like I could throw a rock and hit a streamer. So
yeah,
there's
literally
the amount of choice that the games industry side has now compared to before is very different. And so, it's a lot easier to burn a bridge than it was before, because it's just like, oh, well, I go find somebody else who's easier to work with, or is more on brand, or is a better fit, or has a bigger audience, or a tighter audience, or a more interesting audience, or an audience that really loves my game, or
anyone that's not
that I
this
like
person.
More, somebody who's funnier, somebody who's taller, someone who's shorter. Like, I choose whatever I want. Like, it's great. I have this beautiful position of luxury, and a lot of it really comes down to like, oh, we want to work with 500 streamers. How big's my list? 1,000? Okay, let's figure out how to cut that in half based on all this criteria.
And make sure that my lawyer friend, is taken care of, and so is Chiganators, and that kind of thing.
There's no favoritism for the people who invite me on this show.
Exactly.
How much fun I'm having.
That's right. That's literally true, and we love you for it. So I will say, here's a couple of questions that we've gotten in chat. We got one from Dan Synergy. Oh, hey, Dan. Generally, how strong is the negative stigma of cannabis culture when it comes to devs working with streamers?
It depends wildly on the developers. Some really, really care. Some don't. I mean, obviously, it comes back to like fit again, right? And I know you're asking me this on 420, so
yeah.
But like some people will really care, and others will not, and it just depends on how prevalent that is. It's and it depends a lot on the studio, so it's gonna vary wildly. I mean, you're gonna run into people who are just like, nah, I'm good. Like that will happen, but it doesn't mean it's gonna happen 100% of the time. So.
Gotcha. Cool. And I don't know if I've seen any other questions. You've been doing a great job of answering questions as they come up.
Hey, retired streamer. Yeah, Grid was asking about whether they should reach out to a place after they've streamed because he was given access to a closed beta. Yeah, especially for closed beta, studios that are in that closed beta phase will highly appreciate any information you can send them about how the stream went, what people said in chat, how it was for you. Like when devs are doing closed beta, it's because they want a lot of feedback, but they know they can't be overwhelmed by it yet. They're still making a lot of choices, and they want that information, especially if they're allowing you to stream while it's in closed beta. It means that they want that information, and so they'll probably treat that with a lot of value.
Gotcha. And then we have that cherished in chat says, any suggestions regarding programs like Keymailer or Seismic, asking for a friend, and then clarifies 2 clients, not friends, but it's the same thing. Clients are friends. That's literally my whole handle.
So I know like the main thing to look for on the streamer end is to make sure that those tools are free for you to use. And you're not getting charged, because there's a bunch of good free ones like Arsenal, Woovit. I think Keymailer is also free for streamers. I haven't heard of Seismic. I'll have to look that one up. But yeah, like those things are generally good because it gives companies and people in my position a way to deliver keys that is less manual and time consuming. For example, when Duck Game launched last year, I was like, hey, our game's about to launch. I will be doing nothing but talking to streamers for 3 solid days. So I won't be in any meetings, and I won't be doing anything else because I have to do all of this by hand. So places like Keymailer and Arsenal and the rest of them, they definitely save the developers and the community folks a bunch of time. What I would recommend doing, though, is that if you do use it, and you do get approved for campaigns, which is great because it kind of like auto assign it, like you sign up based on value, on size, right? So like a dev could be like, hey, anybody with 10 or more subs or 5 or more subs,
right,
or 1,000 or more, they create their own rules. The best thing to do is after you play it to just reach out and try to make a connection. Be like, oh, hey, I got your game through Keymailer, or I got it through Arsenal. I played it, it was awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Hope we can, I'll see you around or whatever, right? But like reach back out because I want to hear about that. I want to know who's getting that stuff. It just might mean that I'm too busy to do it manually for each individual person I want playing the game. So.
And it's really important to kind of do that kind of thing because it's not just, hey, that person did a good job with our campaign or keeping, staying a fresh mind. Developers and our firm works with a ton of them. The developers do care about the reception of their game. They don't just throw that out into the ether. So reaching out, showing even good feedback, saying, hey, I'd love to give feedback on the game. That could even be constructive as well, building that kind of relationship.
Absolutely. And like, again, send us clips. If you send us a good clip of you having a great time or of something funny happening, like that goes into the Slack channels that everybody knows game devs are using, but no one talks about out loud. And it gets shared with the whole team, and everyone feels motivated to keep going and to keep working and to keep making awesome stuff. So, like, just know that like those moments where we get to see you having fun playing our game, like you'd be surprised at how rare that is for a lot of studios. Like most game studios are constantly just hearing about how they can't do things or how they're doing things wrong. Hey, we would love to do this. We don't have enough time. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough staff.
Where's my Valorant key?
All the players just told us that we're all idiots and we can't make good design decisions and that our game sucks. Even though they've been playing it for 10 years, our game sucks.
I'm really disappointed that Duck Game didn't have a Path of Exile-like skill tree. Just ridiculous.
I know, right? I asked them to put that in. We're like, no, Dan, we can't do that. So,
listen,
Duck
I need
Game's
a
made
Witcher.
by one guy. One guy makes Duck Game, okay?
I need a Witcher Duck Game Link's Time Sweeper crossover.
Oh, God.
Right? So yeah, I mean, like it's funny. It's kind of sad to say, but like a lot of what game makers do is not very fun. So being able to see those moments of fun and joy and hilarity and the rest of it, like those are some of the most meaningful things that come across our desks. So anytime you've got something like that, whether it's you or a streamer you watch or a streamer you manage, like get that over to us somehow because we do really appreciate those.
One other question that just occurred to me: what's the best way at a conference to say hi to you, or just get introduced to you, or that kind of a thing? And community managers in general, but
I can answer this one. It's to run up to them and give them the biggest hug possible. That's not legal advice, by the way.
I was saying Noah's not remembering PAX East correctly.
Yeah.
Wash your hands. Wash your hands.
So honestly, like the easiest way is to just like. That's not social distancing, Noah. That's correct. Gosh. Yeah, so honestly, the easiest thing is to just walk up to us when we're not busy. And be like, hi, I'm so-and-so. Like, hey, are you Dan from Adult Swim? I'm, a streamer for 460. I play these games on Twitch. I love Aqua Teen Hunger Force. That show is dope. I watch it in college all the time. 420, man.
I was going to say, yeah, really interesting choice.
Like, whatever it is. But the thing is like, most people don't, most streamers are very enigmatic and charismatic and have a fair amount of like outgoing nature. Most community managers are nerds who also like to manipulate people socially, but are also terrible at it. So like,
whoa, hold on.
We are not all like outgoing individuals. Like I rarely walk up to people and introduce myself because I'm still embarrassed, even though I'm 34 and an old man and well established. Like I still feel awkward.
Say we met at a small lunch, I think, right? It was like 6 or 7 people.
We all met at that lunch. Right?
That was the right lunch at East, right?
The only reason was because I got invited to it, And I was like, all right, cool. This is a setting I can work in, right? But if it was just like, I was like, oh, I know Loco. I've never talked to her before. Let me just go walk up to her in this big room full of people and say hello. I'm a person from the internet. That would be weird. You know, that's still what goes through my head. And I'm sure that's how a lot of people feel. It's like, oh, let me go talk to Dan from I saw him on Streamer Square once. I'll just walk over to him and say hello. And that won't be weird at all. You know, so like we all run through this type of thing. But honestly, like I like it when people walk up and introduce themselves.
There was one time, and I love this story, and I'll leave out the identifying characteristic of it. We were at, Adult Swim is known for having a really, really awesome event at PAX East every year. And so
that's one of my fastest lunch to boat experiences ever.
Yeah, seriously. And so we'll actually have to get this.
I live in Southern California. It's not the fastest, but it was close.
We're at the Adult Swim event at PAX East last year on the boat. And I remember you and I were talking, and you turned to me and said, "Do you know that streamer?"
Oh yeah.
Just towards the end of the night,
I
said, "Do you know that streamer?" And I was like, "I have no idea. I know who he is. I've never met him, and it's a pretty big streamer." And you said, "Huh, I really want to meet them." I said, "I'll introduce you." And I went over and said, "Hi."
At my own party.
I know. And I said, "Hi, my name's Noah. You don't know who I am, but this is Dan, and he's throwing this party, so you should talk to him."
Yeah, I really appreciate when people introduce me because it relieves a lot of my awkwardness. I don't like cold calling, and I don't like cold introducing to people. But see, like that's the thing, right? Is if that doesn't bother you, then please do that. Like I really appreciate it when people introduce themselves to me. Especially if they already know who I am or like, oh, I follow you on Twitter. I'm just like, oh my God, that's so nice. Like, thank you. Like, I just made my day, you know, like, it's definitely not difficult. I think the one downside, the one thing, like the one weird social thing I see people doing, that you shouldn't do is like to try and like, just like walk up to a circle of people you don't know and then stay there awkwardly, like for a long time.
Yeah.
Like totally cool to walk up to a group of people and be like, hi, introduce yourself, and then, you know, talk to them. That's totally cool. But I've definitely been in some situations where people just walk up to a circle and then like stay there for 12 minutes without saying anything. And I start to feel weird. So I'm like, I'm just going to go outside for a minute, and then I never come back. So, yeah.
That's funny. Well, and then I'll leave this last story before we go. The way that we all met was actually through Loco, one of the founders of this channel. And I remember she was going to lunch with you. And Galen, I don't remember how you entered into this conversation. Were you with me?
Probably.
I think you were
hanging
out with
together.
Me. So. Yeah, we were hanging out, and I went to meet up with Loco, just like to hand off something. And Loco said, "We're going to lunch with Adult Swim." I was like, "What?" And she said, "Yeah, you want to come?" I'm like, "Can I?" And then I came over and I met you, and I remember I was nervous to meet you, which now I know in hindsight was foolish.
It's a good description of it, though, right? Because
I know
we all have the stuff, right? Like there aren't a lot of everybody. We all end up doing these cool things for different reasons. Half of us, you know, it's not like we had some like grand master plan that got us here that makes us better than everyone, right?
Right.
Like, we're all just in this industry because we love games, and honestly, we just want to have fun and meet other great people who love games. So yeah, it's a multi-way street, right? For every streamer that I'm nervous to meet because I'm like, oh my God, they're so popular. They probably think the same thing about me, and I'm just too blind as to realize it.
So the moral of the story is don't turn down cool lunch invitations, and say hello to everybody because you never know who somebody is.
We talked about this actually in the show that we had leading up to East, but we talked about how much everyone will love you if you make introductions, just in general, just broadly. Hey, do you guys know each other? Kind of a thing, even if there's not a specific mission behind it, and how you should try and have basically every meal or coffee with someone if at all possible, just because that's where so much shit happens.
Yeah, that's definitely really, really good advice.
Yeah.
So I think that's it for the show. I don't know that we have any outstanding questions, so we're gonna go once, twice, All right, so we're going to go ahead and sign off. Let's give the big salute to our friend Dan here. Dan, where can we find you?
So you can find me at Raidhyn.
Pronounce it correctly, though,
Raidhyn.
everyone.
You can find me there on Twitter. Twitter is where you can get a hold of me quickly. My Twitch channel is pretty dormant, although I'm planning to pick it back up again because I missed streaming. I've been kind of taking the last month off.
Nice.
And then do go follow Adult Swim Games as well on Twitter, so that you can look at all the ridiculous memes that me and my coworker come up with to put on there for your internet pleasures.
I love that.
So actually, one question, like if someone sent you a clip that was amazing, would that make it onto like potentially Adult Swim's Twitter?
It depends on the context, right?
And the contracts.
Well, yeah. Like
Yeah,
it really depends. Like a lot of times, like I'll share the stuff on my personal one if
Gotcha.
I think it makes sense for the bigger account. The official one, it really depends on the content, right? Like there's some things that we may or may not shy away from versus embrace, but it's always possible. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Cool. All right, Galen, where can people find you?
I'm Galen Herbstick Cortina, and if you type in the spelling of my name correctly, you can find me because it's pretty unique. But I run Buff Your Finances. It's a financial planning firm. You can find me on Twitter, which hey, Wes just linked. Thank you. And I'm there more often than is likely healthy. How about you, Noah?
All right, you can find me on Twitter at my lawyer friend. I'm a lawyer, and I'm a cool lawyer, but I'm not yet your lawyer, unless I already am. And you can find me on twitter.com/mylawyerfriend. I'm actually going to be streaming up here soon. Going to be doing, Jackbox Party Pack and Bubble Party with friends.
Forgot to say that we were doing the St. Jude stuff.
Yeah, I know. You'll get to say that here in a second. But during the month of May, Your Brand Your Business is going to be doing specialty streams to raise funds for St. Jude. So Galen's got one Monday. I've got a Monday. Ernest has a Monday. And so we're going to be doing some awesome fun streams. Make sure you tune on for some more information.
And at some point, we'll have to play like Pummel Party or Fall Guys. The new thing that those coming out looks amazing for that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
but
it's going to be great.
Nice.
Yes. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Awesome. Thank you so much, folks.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.